when we moved to New York, I don't know even if Catherine and Taylor know that, but when we moved to New York about 14 years ago, from day one, I told my wife I'm going to do a cattle drive to, everybody knows the movie, City Slickers. It's called different in Hebrew, but City Slickers. And I told my wife, I'm going there, I'm going there, I'm going there. And one of the things that I wanted to do is to bring my uncle, Ariel, which is here, to bring him from Israel to do it with me. Ariel been going to have horseback riding with us since I was a kid. That was an opportunity for him to pay back for years of experience. About 5 years ago, we said, okay, this is time. It's time to do it. I called Ariel. I told him, let's do it. He's coming with me. And we agreed that he's coming. And I'm like, okay, I think it was February. And I called and I said, okay, I start calling around and said, where should I go and do this? And I called a couple of ranches. As everybody told you, the experience that you're looking for, there is only one guys that do this. It's called double Rafter in Wyoming. Call them. So a couple of other, your competition actually recommended me calling you. So I called and I said, listen guys, this is a story, I want to do it. And it's February and I'm coming in August. And I don't know who it was. I think it was then I started laughing on the other side of the line. He said, are you joking me? We are booking 2 years in advance. So I called back to Israel and I said, listen guys, this is a story. Either we're gonna have to compromise on the trip or we need to wait 2 years. And Shani was, we decided at that point that Shani was joining us, and we decided to wait a couple of years and be patient. And I got to tell you guys, it worth every minute of waiting. It was a perfect, perfect, perfect experience. I couldn't ask for more. It was so much fun. And Shira was here a second ago. She still has, I keep on talking about that was like 3 or 4 years ago already, I think. So now that we are discussing doing it again, probably in 2022, one of the things that I asked Catherine is to join us, and Taylor joined us as well, which is great. And we have Dana here in the background looking at Wyoming. This is how the view, when you're doing it, look like. It's amazing. And tell us about it. And Catherine is also a very talented photographer, so I'm sure we're gonna have amazing pictures in the presentation. So Catherine, Taylor, it's yours. I'm gonna shut up and from say whatever you want. And guys, if you wanna ask any question, just unmute yourself, ask, just mute back so we're not gonna have a background noise. Good luck, thank you guys.
Yeah, we're really open to questions. So I guess we'll start by introducing ourselves, and then we made a presentation with some photos, and we'll have to figure out how to do the screen sharing thing to do that. But so. Yeah,
I'm Taylor Kearns. My father, Dana Kearns, is the one on the horse in the back there. Yeah, I guess the rest of the introduction can wait till we get the pictures up. We'll have to apologize for, we have a limited supply of pictures because Catherine's external hard drive that had 5 years worth of pictures on it, it has crashed.
Yeah, so we made it work. There's still a ton of pictures, and we'll try to go through them in a timely manner. But okay, let's try and hit. Can everybody see my screen? It says you are screen sharing.
Yeah, we see it. It's all good.
Okay. So my name's Catherine Kearns, my husband Taylor Kearns. Our family has been ranching for 6 generations. That's just counting us too, but we just had a baby 3 months ago, almost 4 months ago. So that would make him the 7th generation. So we're gonna talk a little bit about our family ranch and our cattle drives and some of our other business adventures that have kind of branched off of this passion for ranching.
And one other side note on that of, we do have my cousin's oldest daughter comes on the cattle drives with us, Clara, and she's 7th generation.
Yeah, she would be the oldest of the 7th generation, and Jack is currently the youngest. So, yep. Just some pictures for our introductions. Taylor and I actually met on his family's cattle ranch, and my dad and I were guests 8 9 years ago?
9 years ago, yeah.
We came out the first time in 2011, so let's do some math.
Almost 10 years ago.
So yeah, almost 10 years ago. And at the end of that first trip, Taylor's mother said, I really want you to meet my youngest son. He wasn't on that trip yet, and so it was a little bit of an arranged marriage, we like to joke, because my dad and I came back the following year. We had a really amazing time, and Taylor and I met, and the rest is history.
I say I sold her on the romance, and she thought that this looked like a good means to the end for the lifestyle she wanted. I made sure to marry her before she changed her mind.
So we, at the bottom there is a picture of Jack. He was born in September, right the day before the September trip actually started. So he was born on the run. So a little bit about our family history. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, so my ancestors came west in a covered wagon in 1886. So they were towards the tail end of those coming west in a wagon. But on the way out, they went to a saloon, mistake number one, and started to shoot his mouth off a little bit about this pretty place he had picked out for homesteading.
Right at the base of the Bighorn Mountains. It was so gorgeous. Well, he oversold it because
one of the guys in the saloon beat him out to it and homesteaded there instead. So we ended up moving down the creek a little ways, a couple miles, and we homesteaded here, the Double Rafter Homestead. You can see the picture of the barn there. That is the original barn that was built somewhere around 1890. We don't know for certain. We know that it was built somewhere between 87 and 92. So we have a picture in 92 of the family standing in front of the barn. So that's why we guess about 1890. And so the families continued to ranch there ever since. I would say the ranch grew throughout the years. There's, I would say, fair chunks of the land that were given to the game and fish for big elk pasture and things like that, of areas of the land that we couldn't use economically for ranching. Then that was up until the late 70s, early 80s. And the late 70s and early 80s were brutal on the family rancher. A lot of family ranches went out of business. And ours wasn't really any exception. My grandfather was paying 18% interest at the bank. Doesn't matter how good of an operator you are, you can't make that work. And so he lost pretty much everything. And in fact, of the original ranch, all we have left is that homestead. Then I would say my father he had been ranching at that point. So he and his brothers kind of were talking, and his youngest brother, my Uncle Blaine, was fresh out of college and said, well, you know, something that seems to be taking off is this tourism on ranches. And so they decided to go ahead and give it a try. After that first year, my Uncle Blaine, who had come up with the idea, said, no way, that is too much work. And so he bowed out at that point. And so it was just my father and his other brother who continued to do double rafter cattle drives until about 2001. And that was when my Uncle Creighton then bowed out at that point, and it has been just my father ever since.
So Dana and Alice are, Dana and Alice are Taylor's parents, and they've really taken this idea and run with it and created something amazing. So we've got a couple of videos for you here.
I would say, hold on a couple things on that. So my mother there, her father grew up on a ranch just down the creek from where my father grew up. And
their grandmothers were actually best friends.
Yep. And so my mom's side of the family, the Fullers, they came out and homesteaded in 1909, I believe. And so they were latecomers to the area. And so my father grew up with all of her cousins. And then when my mother came back one summer and met my father at a community picnic at 16. And they said that the sparks were flying, but then they didn't see each other again for about another 6 or 7 years. And she came back to take care of her grandmother. So the rest is history on that. So yeah, now we can show that video. Yeah.
Go back here to this. This was a video done by one of our travel agencies that we work with in Australia.
Catherine, at least I can't see anything. Maybe others can. Maybe it's only locally.
No, nobody. Nobody.
So I think you should. So I think you need to share the screen specifically, or YouTube.
Yeah, you have to share each screen.
Sorry for interrupting.
Oh no, please, thank you. Okay, so what do I need to do? Sharing is paused. Bring your window to the front.
Perfect, and then you'll be able to see it.
I think you have to click that button, maybe.
Stop share.
No.
Yeah, no.
Stop sharing, open it in YouTube, and then open specific tab.
How's that?
Exactly.
Can you see it now?
Yeah, and then just expand it, and that's it, and we are up to it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, try again.
All the stars around you, just to show you that you're one. Singing, oh, sounds inviting you to stay. All the stars around you, be together, that's the way of singing. Oh, sparks in every mood, sparks in every day. Sparks on every way. Bring your moments to all the stars around you, just to show you that you're one. Singing, oh. Sounds inviting you to stay. All the stars around you, be together, that's the way of singing. Oh, sparks in every mood, sparks in every day, sparks on every way. Oh, sparks in every mood. Sparks on every day, sparks on every way.
So there was a cow camp that it briefly showed there that my family actually built in about 1932. I think they'll end up having to reshare the screen. I think we're still on YouTube.
Hold up, I'm having issues. Sorry, you guys.
Catherine,
Okay.
is there an option to send us the links to YouTube? It's amazing. I can't wait to show it to my parents.
Yeah, I can do that. Can I do that through here?
You can do it in chat. Yeah, actually, if you just copy paste it in chat, it's amazing. If it's public and in YouTube and not internal or something.
It is public.
Catherine, also send it to me later. I'm gonna shoot after we'll finish. I'm gonna
Thanks,
shoot.
Tal.
I'm gonna upload everything to YouTube, and I'm gonna shoot an email to everybody that registers. So if somebody didn't show up, and then they're gonna get a link to a copy of this recording. And then if you want to add any more links or whatever it is, just add it. I'm gonna add it to the email.
Thank you very much. You sent it exactly as I asked. Thanks.
Okay.
So are we back? Is it back to us or is it still
I
on?
think it's on us now. We're cattle people, you guys. We're not tech people.
This is why we like you. It's good.
Keep it simple.
Good thing. Keep it simple. Exactly.
Catherine,
back
come
to
on.
share.
We know it's not true. It's true about Taylor, but it's not true about you.
Okay, we should be back to,
Okay.
can you guys see my screen again? Okay, great.
So
Yep.
there was a cow camp that was showed briefly there that my my ancestors built that in about 1932, I think, and they actually brought the logs from the original homestead that we homesteaded in 1887, and they brought them up into the mountains using a team of mules. And there's a real steep hill that you drop down off of into where the cow camp is. And,
You can see it in that video.
yep. And in the beginning of the video, when we're going down that steep hill, and the wagon ended up overrunning the team of mules and ended up killing them actually. So just a neat little bit of history on that.
So Dana and Alice took this idea, and the idea was basically, let's take people, let's bring people out onto the ranch, and we'll treat them just like a crew member, and do everything exactly the way we used to. We will camp the way we used to, move camp the way we used to, cook the way we used to, or the way we do, and bring our cattle with us on the trails that we've been trailing our cattle. So we do 6 trips a year, and it flows just how we normally ranch. So this is the family homestead. The house was built in about the 1930s in the original barn. I'm pressing buttons now. So we start at the homestead, and then we trail to the base of the canyon where we stay. You can kind of see, this is our camp at the base of the Little Horn Canyon.
So I say right here at the base of the mountains, when I mentioned my mom's family having a ranch near to where my father's family's ranch was located, this piece of ground right here is actually part of my mother's old family ranch.
Yeah. And so this camp is a solid day's ride from the homestead to where we camp out before we push our cattle up the mountain. And so on the left there, you can see all of the cooking is done in Dutch ovens. They're big cast iron pots with lids, and we use charcoal briquettes, which I suppose is a touch of modern life. But the charcoal briquettes actually allow you to be really precise in your temperature. So you can bake cakes, you can do bread, soups, I don't know, you can do anything. Anything you can make in an oven, you can make in that.
I want to add something here.
Yeah.
It's all delicious. You gain like 10 pounds while you are doing this. It sounds like you're going there and you are like in the middle of nowhere. You ended up, you need 2 horses to carry you at the end of the trip. So it's all delicious.
Well, we do that because you all are working so hard. So we gotta keep you all fed. So we stay in these floorless canvas teepee tents. This is what we've always camped in. Some of us, like Taylor and I, actually don't use a canvas tent. We just sleep under the stars. But this is the traditional way, and it can be pretty spectacular. So this is the only photo that's not mine. This was done by the Sheridan Press, so I need to give them some credit for that. This is just a picture you can kind of see more of at the base of the canyon, gathering up the cattle. Once we bring all the cattle from the homestead, they kind of spread out in the valley there. And then the morning of, before the crack of dawn, really riders are up in the saddle, gathering those cattle back up because they do spread out. So you got to find them all, gather them, and then bring them up the canyon.
I would say the 2 trips that we do going up the mountain, there's only one that's open to the public, but we start those days very early.
Like breakfast, the cooks start breakfast at 1 or 2 in the morning.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then most of the time people are in the saddle. They're saddling their horses by about 4:30 in the morning. So that's in order to beat the heat, because cattle, they don't sweat like a horse does or like we do. They have to, in order to get rid of heat, they end up panting like a dog. And so the only way for them to actually cool their body down is to slow down. And so that's why we start trailing the cattle as early in the morning as possible.
It's not just to torture our guests, it's legitimate.
And although we have found, interestingly enough, that the more you torture people, the more they seem to enjoy it.
Yeah, like Tal's trip. We'll get into that eventually. So this is a picture of a place we call a staircase. It's on the trail going up to the Little Horn Canyon, and it's pretty gnarly. You can't quite see the cliff edges on both sides, but it's a drop a long ways down to the Little Horn Mountain, and it can be hot in July. It can be pretty hot, and so it's important we talk a lot about how to read your animals, meaning looking for signals of when to push them harder and when to give them space. And when it's hot and in the open like this, you tend to give them a little bit more space. That way they can make a nice little line and walk easy.
Yep.
So then once we're up in the mountains, this was taken in our horse pasture at the Little Horn Cow Camp. We've got about 70 plus or minus head of horses that, we're constantly needing more horses for our guests as we bring out 20 at a time. So we're always riding horses, we're always training horses, and it makes for beautiful pictures in the morning when you're bringing them all in from the pasture. So that's going up the Little Horn Canyon again too. So I don't know what to say about that. I just really liked the picture and I wanted you guys to see it. And that's the base, our camp at the base of the mountain.
So one of the other, so the second trip we do going up the mountains is actually a trip with the Semper Fi program. So it's it's all veterans that have been medically discharged, so this group tries to help these veterans get back into civilian life, and part of that is they do some programs that help build some confidence and build some skills and things like that. And so they have a horsemanship program where they start teaching guys horsemanship, and then ours is kind of the culminating event to that program, to where when they have, after they've gone through a bunch of the other horsemanship programs and they've learned a bunch of the basic skills, that they end up coming on our trip as a reward for that.
Well, and it's amazing to see because, a lot of these guys come out and they're like, yeah, I've gone to a few clinics and ridden in an arena. I can ride now. And then they come out to the ranch and they look at those cliff edges and those hillsides and they say, man, we have to ride that. And we say, yep, the cows are up there, so we can get there. But it takes an amazing amount of teamwork to move cattle. And you can see everybody's kind of in a line to push this group up the hill through a hailstorm, actually, in this photo. But it's amazing to see these guys and gals come together, work together, and accomplish a goal, accomplish a task as a team.
And that's actually one of the neat things about the trip in general, is you have all these strangers come together on this trip, and they don't really know one another. And you know, the first kind of couple days, they're hesitant to get in there. They don't really know what's going on. And it's amazing by the end of the week how everybody comes together as a group and as a team, and I would say they're able to actually get the job done, accomplish a goal. And so we find, especially with the veterans, it's a big team building exercise as well. And it helps, it's goal oriented because we have to get there, go rain or shine. And so it really, I would say it can be a very tremendous trip from that standpoint.
Well, and you see people on the Semper Fi trip and others, you see their confidence change by the end. So we do have a pretty amazing group of horses. This picture was taken on the Semper Fi trip. And the gentleman on the left is a pretty phenomenal individual, just in his outlook and what he's been able to accomplish. But he is, I think it was an IED.
Yeah.
He's missing both his legs and one arm, but he's built a custom saddle, and with one of our sweet older horses, she was able to really rein with him, and I don't know, they got along well.
Mm-hmm.
So it just goes to show that you're so much more capable than you realize.
The interesting thing is, from the liability standpoint in the United States from lawsuits of one of those little laws on the books in Wyoming, it is illegal to strap somebody to a saddle. So he had to sign a special waiver because he had two little Velcro straps that went around his legs that helped hold him in. So,
and then his saddle was custom built for him. He liked to chew tobacco, and so he had a special notch made on the horn of his saddle so that he could open his tobacco can with one hand. He was a great guy. So, but that's the thing we love about the cattle drives, is it's such an amazing opportunity to bring in people from all over the world, and show them about our lifestyle and teach them firsthand, this is what we do and why we do it.
And so that's one of the things we do, is one of the biggest things that we feel is our goal in all of this is to teach people about our lifestyle and what we're doing, and to educate, because there's things like this picture here where somebody from the outside looks at it as, oh, you're choking that animal. But that's not it at all. We're doctoring that animal. That animal has pneumonia. And so we're giving them an antibiotic in order to help heal that animal. And so the person holding the rope, there's Jake. He's worked for us for, I don't know, 6-7 years now. So my father's the man on horse, and then it's a guest that is there walking. And so we teach people how to, not only what we're doing, why we're doing it, but we teach them how to do it as well. And you can see here where we've got another guest that's helping hold that calf while we give it some medicine.
So one of the things that we do while we're moving our cattle from pasture to pasture in the mountains, there's about 60,000 acres there. And when we are in the Bighorn Mountains, it's about 9,000 feet is the height of our highest camp. And so you get animals that develop sickness from being out in the nature, but particularly the high altitude. So we teach our guests how to look for that sickness and then how to doctor it. Most of the time we doctor with a medicine called LA200. That's the brand name. It's an oxytetracycline, which is a 72-hour antibiotic. But those animals, if you've ever been around cows, they're a little bit hard to get your hands on when you're in the middle of the pasture. And so that's why we rope them. And then once we rope them, we wrestle them to the ground. And that's when we end up getting them with a needle that has the 72-hour antibiotic. So we include our guests. The gentleman in front there in this photo is a guest on, I think it was this September trip. And then Taylor's middle brother is in the middle there with his brother's girlfriend on the horse. So it like I said, it takes teamwork in every aspect of raising cattle for beef. It takes a lot of teamwork. So this is a picture that I took in the Dry Fork cow camp, the one that Taylor was talking about. This was probably one of the hills that overran the team of mules bringing the logs in. It's pretty steep, and it takes a lot of effort to keep your cattle on the trail. So in this photo, there's cattle spread out all across the trail. The trail is probably like one animal's width. And so you're really riding some rough country to keep everything going where it's going, but that's kind of the thrill. That's the best part of it, is getting to ride everywhere you get to go.
And that's one of the things that actually kind of shocks people when they come out, is that we're kind of the opinion that you are responsible for yourself. And so we kind of let you get out and do as much as you want to do, or do as little as you want to do. And sometimes that doesn't always pan out as we would like to, as Tal would attest to. But it's one of those that people are free to take their horse where they want to take it. And we don't have anybody there telling them not to.
Well, and we bring out riders from all different levels of experience. And so you don't have to be an experienced rider to do that. To do the cattle drives. A lot of people, they hang out and they experience some wild terrain, but just from the trail. And then there are people like these two in the photo that are experienced riders, and so they go everywhere and they ride the crazy stuff. So this is just bringing them down. This is at the bottom of that hill near our cow camp. You can see the teepee tent in the left, but it's pretty remote. I think I said already, there's about 60,000 acres of uninhabited land. So sometimes they move for you slow and sometimes they don't. And I like this picture. It makes me a little bit dizzy, but it's Taylor getting everything back on the trail.
Yeah, so this is another one of our cow camps here. So in the September trip, we have 2 trips in August that we're moving the cattle from one drainage to the next.
One pasture in the mountains to another.
Yep, and so it's so there's several. It's one of those where you might only be trailing the cattle 5 miles throughout the week as the crow flies, but in order to get there, because of the canyons and everything like that, you end up having to trail the herd 35 miles to go all the way around and get them to their desired location. And then we have 2 trips in the fall that bring the cattle off of the mountains. And so this is taken in one of the fall trips where we start gathering the cattle. And that's what the trip was that Tal was on, where we gathered the cattle throughout the week and we were bringing them to the lower country. And then normally we gather all the cattle and take them down the canyon. The trip Tal was on, the weather was cold, people were cold, and so we ended up calling a little bit of an audible, and we ended up riding out that day. But generally speaking, we end up taking the cattle off.
So yeah, by the end of August, really the weather can get pretty cold. It can vary. By September, we tell people to pack and dress like they're going to go skiing, with long underwear and lots of warm clothes, because it can get really cold. Every now and then you have a really nice September with changing leaves and 70 degrees, but yeah, the weather can change. And by then the cattle are ready to come down off the mountains. Once it starts to snow and get cold, we're ready to go home. So this picture was taken in a place called Lick Creek, where we probably spent a week just looking for cattle spread out. I would imagine that pasture is 10,000 acres, 5?
Yeah.
It's big, I don't know.
One of the, the very first trip Catherine was on is actually quite a notorious trip as well, because it was a fall trip. And it was the only trip that we ever didn't get a single animal off the mountains because they spent all week gathering the cattle. They brought them down to a lower pasture in an area we call Rock Cabin Park. And then they sit on the cattle until about dark. They get up at daylight the next morning, and
all the cattle were gone. They had walked 5 days worth back up to the original camp where we all started. And we ended up riding down the canyon. But I will say, it was still a really great trip. Obviously, I came back, I met the cowboy, got married. I don't know, it was great. But no, there were a group of longhorn cattle that they had with those steers. And the idea with the longhorn cattle is that the longhorns would show the steers who were young and like teenagers basically and didn't know where they were in the mountains. They were hoping the longhorns would show people where to go or show the cows where to go. Well, they did show the steers where to go because the longhorns decided they weren't ready to come down off the mountains yet, and so they took them all the way back up to our highest camp. So it's just another shot of coming down in the fall, down the canyon. Yeah, I don't know. Our cleanup trip, our September trip is still a larger group, but by the time our cleanup trip comes around in October, the weather's cold enough that we end up staying and cooking and eating out of the cabins at the cow camp. And so we limit that to about 10 people, just so that we can all fit in there. But this is a really cool cabin. I'll let Taylor.
Yeah, so this is another cow camp of ours. We have a total of 4 cabins in the mountains. This one was also built around 1930. This is the Little Horn Cow Camp. This is an area Tal has not seen, but it's a neat camp down in there. And this cow camp actually shared by 3 different permittees. So when you run your cattle in the mountains, it's national forest, and so the Forest Service will assign you an area that you can run your cattle in. And so for this particular cabin, there are 3 different ranches that all use this as their base to ride from. And so you'll end up staying at these cow camps. Really, I say you end up sleeping outside. There's just, but it gives you a place to cook and store things, and then you can ride out from there during the day, and then you'll come back that evening. But it's a really neat cow camp. We have. Did
you say when it was built?
Yeah, it was about 1930-ish. Yeah. So. Yeah, this is just coming down the canyon. That little structure you see there is actually an old sheep herder's cabin. It's just a little 1-room shack that's left up there. This is coming down farther down the canyon. You can see there, this is the Little Horn Canyon. So this was an area, once again, Tal didn't quite ride. But this, you can see this is an area we call Third Crossing. You can see that the terrain can be a little bit rough.
I'm just writing down all the places that you didn't take me. I'm just saying. So I'm keeping a record of all the places you didn't take me. So next time.
Yep. And so the Little Horn Canyon is spectacular, and as you can see, the scenery is amazing in it, but it can be a little rough, and there's areas that can be a little treacherous.
And like I said in the beginning, this is all trail that our family has trailed their cattle up and down for over 100 years. And they were actually grazing the Forest Service land up in the Bighorn Mountains before it was national forest. And so I can't imagine what the trail was like in the 1930s before they did some work to it.
I would say the rumor at the time was that the grass on the mountains wasn't any good, that cattle didn't perform well on it. And so naturally my family was dumb enough to say, well, let's take cows there.
Let's try it. So at the end of our trips, People feel, like I said, they feel a tremendous amount of success. Once you've accomplished your task of getting the cattle to or from the mountains or to the new pasture, you feel a tremendous amount of success. But also, people are excited to finally have a shower. And I think this picture was taken a few years ago, but I think they were mostly excited to be done and get their shower after 5 days of working hard and in the dust and the rain and all of that. So this is another video done by Sheridan Tourism. I think I'm gonna have to exit and stop share again. We'll go back to Sheridan Tourism. Share screen. Okay, can you see my screen again? Yeah, okay. This was on our family and the trips.
It's something special, just not all the hard work the generations put in before to make this possible. There are a lot of hard times trying to make it survive, but through just perseverance and thinking outside the box, we're blessed.
Our family has grazed this for over 100 years. So we're grazing the same terrain, we're riding the same trails, we're camping and cooking the same way. You can't find that anywhere else.
We started grazing the national forest before it was national forest. It's in your blood, it's in your bones. The land is linked to you. This is just part of my soul. It's a lifestyle I've been born to, bred to do, and that's what I passionately love to do. I realized I'd rather be a cowboy my entire life than be doing a job that I don't enjoy. I am self-employed, been a rancher my entire life, 64 years of age, and have got a few miles under the belt. The 70s were brutal on the family operation in all the United States. We realized we had to figure out another way to generate income or get out of the cow business. It was just that simple. So we started the cow drives.
There's a lot of healing that happens in these mountains.
We'll have people years down the road send us an email and say, "You changed my life. Thank you so much." My family is a very tight-knit family, and it's because of the lifestyle that we lead. I think people see that and they feel that.
This, in particular, is a dying way of life. And so to be a part of a family continuing this tradition, it's documenting something really special.
So the only thing about that is that they didn't get any shots of Alice because she was busy keeping us all well fed. So you'll just have to imagine that where she was. But that video always makes me tear up because it's 100% a family business. There's no way, I mean, we have one outside hired guy that is like family, but everybody else, in order for our ranching operation to work, it takes all of us as a family to work together. So am I still sharing my screen? Am I done? Stop sharing. Okay. And then we'll go back to my presentation.
I think you need to share this slideshow.
Oh, I'm sorry. Bear with me. Okay. That one. So the rest of the season, people always ask us what we do in the off season. So I've got a few photos to show what we do in the off season, but I normally put my camera away.
I'd say that during the winter we spend most of our time feeding cows, and so we try and winter them out as long as possible where they're still grazing on their own, but at a certain point snow gets too deep and you have to start feeding hay. And once you start feeding them hay, you're kind of stuck feeding them hay until green grass.
Yeah. So this truck that Taylor is standing on has
hydraulic.
Thank you. Hydraulic arms that you can roll the hay out with, and you can roll it pretty much until you get to the end, and that little tiny more on the inside you end up having to push by yourself. So most of our time is spent feeding out. And then Taylor and I, and training horses. You can talk about that. You can tell them what they're seeing here.
This was a horse I was training, named Charlie. And
Amazing horse.
yeah, unfortunately, he's not one we owned. I was training him for another gal. But you can see I was having him lay down for me. So this exercise can be really beneficial in trust building, but you have to time it right, and it can go a long ways towards building trust with a horse that isn't quite sure. Charlie didn't need it, but I was doing it for illustration purposes for my cousin who had a horse that needed it.
And then Taylor and I mentioned earlier on, we just had a baby a few months ago. He'll be 4 months. Wow.
He's almost 4 months. Yeah.
Mid-January. So we've been working pretty hard on some other projects in town, which I'll talk in a bit. But on New Year's Day, we got to have some time, just the three of us, and loaded Jack up in the backpack, and we went out looking for some cattle that had spread out in the valley. And it was just a really nice day. Jack loved it. I wish I could put another video in here. I couldn't figure that part out, but he slept the whole time. And then I think we were out 2 or 3 hours until the very end. And then he woke up and was telling us all sorts of stories. But I think I rode with them this summer until I was about 8 months pregnant. And then I was like, yeah, maybe I should slow down a bit and stop. But I think he was really used to the motion. So yeah. I'm excited to bring him along a bit more. And it was just nice to be on a horse again after, 5 months. So Taylor and I, in 2017 or 18, something like that, started our own business called Truly Beef. And we, as another way to diversify, because ranching it's really difficult to make a living ranching now. It wasn't just in the 70s when the interest rates for the bank were really high. Unless you've inherited everything and have just, the perfect piece of land, it's really hard to make a living. And so we've branched out on our own and created a company called Truly Beef, where we sell beef from our ranch in different package sizes to direct to consumer.
There was a study done in 2017 that showed Wyoming ranches operate on a 2% margin.
Any of you are business people, you'll know that 2% is very small.
Yep. And so there needs to be another avenue for people to try and make a living ranching. And so the thing that makes the most sense is doing a direct to consumer like this.
Versus traditionally, ranchers raise their cattle, and if they're a cow-calf operation like we are, they raise their calves, and then when their calves are ready to be weaned, they would send them to market, and they'd be auctioned and marketed off. But it's just there's the big 4 meat packing plants. Have all the power. They
do 80% of the processing in the United States. And so that really they can sit around the table, set the price, and then the rest, all the ranchers just end up having to deal with it because there's nobody that they can pass that buck on to. So ranchers are getting raked over the coals. And so this is a way that we came up with to try and make a little extra money on our operation, and another form of diversification.
So we work with some local restaurants in town as well. I don't know. I hope none of you guys are hungry right now. I'm hungry. But on the left was some steaks done and some...
Why are you closing your eyes, Tal?
Shira is already preparing a list of what to order.
So we've worked with our Rib and Chop, which is a nice steakhouse in Sheridan, Birch, which is they call it elevated Americana cuisine. And we do burgers with a few different restaurants. So that's been great. And then that led into our latest creation, kind of brought on by COVID. I'll let Taylor explain.
So Western Heritage Meat Company. So as I was talking about, there needs to be another way for ranchers to be able to market their cattle. And the thing that makes the most sense, of course, is the direct to consumer. But where we were running into the problem with Truly Beef was that there wasn't adequate infrastructure in place for processing your meat in a custom fashion like this. So
in order for you to sell your beef, if you want to sell it to somebody, it has to be butchered at what's called a USDA meat processing facility. So it's a federally inspected meat processing plant, and there's just not a lot. There's not a lot of mom and pop USDA meat processing places. And Truly Beef, we're toying with opening our own meat processing in the 5 to 10 year plan because our Truly Beef business was growing and we were outgrowing the infrastructure available. And so then when COVID happened, people started panicking and everybody started sending their meat to be processed at these small USDA meat processing plants. And so we had sold a whole bunch of beef, but had nowhere to get it butchered. And so we had to do something, and we weren't alone. There's several direct-to-consumer ranchers like us in our area, and they had nowhere to go as well. Meanwhile, in the grocery stores, I don't know if it was the same for you guys, but our grocery stores had empty shelves, and the things that were on their meat in particular were super expensive, but yet the rancher wasn't making any money. So I don't know, I guess we like to punish ourselves, and we like to work because we've created another company. It's our own meat processing plant where we'll be doing other regional, I don't know what I'm saying.
Yeah, we'll be processing meat for the entire region, and so it was something that was needed in the area, and so we were just the ones that were dumb enough to say, let's give it a try.
So this is so that more farmers and ranchers can process their beef, pork, and lamb just like us, so that they can sell it just like we can.
Yeah, so having the USDA inspection on it allows people to sell across state lines. So that's what makes it. So when you go back,
or internationally.
Yep, and so when you go back here to Truly Beef, if somebody goes on to our website there from, say, New York, and they click order, and having it in, under a USDA facility allows us to be able to ship that across state lines, whereas otherwise we couldn't. And so there were a lot of people in the area needing something like this, and so that is why we decided to go ahead and do it, because we were having to drive about
5 hours.
I was gonna say at the moment we're going about 300 miles to get processing done somewhere, and so it eats into your profits as well, and
it's harder on your animals too when you have to drive them longer distances, and that can affect the flavor of your meat if you have stressed animals. So it's all around better for there to be more processing. It makes everything a little bit more sustainable, a little bit better for the producers.
You opened the processing plant in Sheridan?
Yep.
Yes.
That's where we are currently. For the last, for the last 5 months, that has been what has consumed my everyday.
Yeah.
So my brother Trent has stepped up to the plate on it, and he's running the ranch while I'm here doing this. And so we butchered our first animal. You can see there a couple weeks ago.
Which this was really cool. So for our first beef to be processed, a local rancher donated that cow, and then we donated the slaughter, and the processing was donated. We're not quite ready to package it yet. So the processing was donated by another butcher, and then all of that beef is going to be turned into hamburger and get donated to the Wyoming Food Group, which will feed people in need in our community. So I'm really hopeful that this is a symbolic start of how this processing plant is going to serve the community and serve our region. So, and that's Jack, of course, on the left, calling all the shots. So he's quite the trooper.
There is a brain, there is a muscle, and this is a management. Becomes management.
Yep, he's the management.
He is definitely the boss, whether he realizes it or not.
Yeah.
This is how it works.
Yep.
And
So I think that's all we got as far as slideshow goes. If anybody has any questions, we'd love to.
I say, sorry, my mother's not back yet with Jack.
we wait, be patient. No rush here. We need to do a cross US, horseback riding, cross US, coast to coast. I don't think anybody did that yet.
That would be a long trip.
Be a couple of months, but I'm for it.
Yeah.
You organize it and we'll do it.
The answer is no.
The management. No, it's all about
Catherine, sorry. Let me know who should talk.
Somebody's TV on the background. I'm not sure.
Shani, yeah.
I'm not sure, Maya, they heard you. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yes. Guys, I thank you very much. I was totally here looking at the videos, amazing. I have a few questions because I came like without any familiarity with that. I actually saw a post that Tal posted on Facebook, and that's it. And this is why I'm here. I started horse riding. Actually, I'm riding twice a week like in a course with a trainer twice a week. And I'm planning, I fell in love, I got obsessed, yada, yada, yada. Makes sense. And yeah, it catched my eye, what I saw that, and sent an email to Tal and this Zoom meeting. I just want to know about the dates. We are talking currently just in making sure about 2020, right?
The dates are online for 2021. And then I'm not sure what they are yet for 2022. We don't really know until probably the end of the season.
We don't officially set the dates until about the August before. So so come the August of 2021, we'll officially set the dates for August of 2022. We normally tell people.
Where can I see all this information? I just want to. Okay, just to get into the website and that's it. Everything is there.
Yep, doublerafter.com has everything. And
Perfect.
We normally tell people you can look at the dates for this upcoming year and you can figure that the next year will be within a few days of that.
Okay,
So,
I saw it.
There's the 6th year.
Okay.
I don't know how to
from my conversation with Dana, I believe, and again, I'm not sure it's 100% accurate, that it's all booked for 2021, right?
Correct.
So we're talking about 2022.
booked a year in advance.
Yeah, we're a year to 2 years in advance. Yeah, we've got a lot of people on the books for 2022 as well.
Thanks, Tal, for pointing that out. I was just trying to understand where should I I'm looking forward. So I want to make sure to make my plans. I'm located in Israel. I need to ask some vacation days and stuff. And I want to, to better understand.
Let's say like this, no rush. Well, you need to book, but for
2022, 2021 is already booked.
I think so. Double check with them, but I think so. Yeah, that's what I understand from Dana.
Or with one other person, we do have a wait list, and so if somebody has to drop out for some reason, you can always ask to be put on the wait list. And if you're flexible in your schedule, we get a lot of people actually that come, that get a call from the wait list and come last minute.
Yeah.
So that's always an option.
Especially when you have something like COVID pop up.
Yeah, that was really hard. That was hard this year, but.
Did you add cancellation for this year, or it was full as well?
We had a lot of international people scheduled this year that had to cancel, and luckily luckily we were able to fill it with all people in the US.
I say we were probably about 75% capacity this year.
Yeah.
The firewoman
Enough to
from
make
Los
things
Angeles?
work. What's that?
The firewoman from Los Angeles? What's her name? I forgot her name. That comes every year.
Oh, Lisa Giblin?
I think so. She's coming every year.
Yeah. I don't remember if Lisa came this year or not.
She did.
She did?
She
Okay.
did. She came on the second August trip, but you
Okay.
and I were kind of out of it by then.
Oh, yeah.
So we were getting ready to have Jack. But, oh, I do have a video, Tal, that you might remember. This was taken on your trip. Let me see if I can pull this up and screen share this.
With that, I don't remember any video taking in on our trip. So
Not
I
one that
think
you
you'll
knew.
remember this one. You'll remember this when you see it. Let me see. Can you see my screen?
I remember something. I don't remember what was the story. I remember something. We get stuck in the rain, something over there.
It was so cold this day, you have no idea. So cold.
Vacation of a lifetime right there. I don't know if you guys remember that, but that was on the last day. And the
Remember?
last day of
We had 4 days of sun, and it was beautiful and great. And then the last day it was snowy and rainy all day long. This is how we end up with the trip. And the only person that was happy about it was Shani, because Shani came and said from day one, I want to ride in the snow. It's like it's 90 degrees. There is no snow here. And then the last day we woke up, and it's all snowing, and I have a picture of Shani just very happy riding in
I
the snow.
was happy for like an hour, and then it got so cold, I wasn't happy at all.
I think the best dressed one was Ariel, actually, because he had a really nice big coat with a fur collar. And he was probably the warmest one out of every single one of us there.
This is what happened when you're experienced. You know what to do. So this is how we do. It was so much fun. It was so much fun. This is
So
amazing.
to explain what was happening in that video, we were trying to pack up camp and get out of camp with everybody's luggage, but our luggage transportation got a little bit stuck down at the camp. So it took 2 horses and I don't know, 10 people and a machine to get the luggage out of there. So, and that was all before we left camp as riders and rode down about 15 miles to the base of the canyon in the rain and snow. So, I mean, it really is the real deal. Go rain or shine, the job needs to get done, and so you just pitch in where you can and do it. So
you come for the experience, you get the experience, no? This is how it works.
Yep.
You get the full package. This is how it goes. Good or bad, good or bad.
Catherine, what will you suggest as a first ride, like going on September, August, like your best recommendation for me, for someone coming from Israel? I'm gonna have 2 years of experience. I'm actually gonna do some jumping here, like in Israel with horses. So I'm gonna have a bit of experience, not more than 2 years, coming to Wyoming for my first time. What's gonna be a recommendation?
It depends on what you're looking for. And so kind of what I should have mentioned more in the pictures of the trips is that the July trips are really, really long hours and in the saddle, and they can be grueling and exhausting, but the most rewarding in my opinion. I mean, you're up before dawn.
Because you struggle and you succeed at the end.
Yeah. Yep. Well, and I think it's really clear to see what you've accomplished. You've taken the cattle from the homestead up through the canyon, which is challenging, and you're up in the mountains. And so it's pretty. That part can be really rewarding, but it's definitely the most challenging physically?
I would say the advantage to the 2 August trips are the fact that we're in the mountains, and so mornings aren't quite as early because it's cooler up there. And so, you know, we'll be having breakfast at 7 o'clock or something like that. So then I say the days in the saddle, we're still probably spending 6 to 10 hour days in the saddle. And the terrain it's all either up or down, but it's not, because it doesn't have the early mornings and the heat, it's not quite as difficult.
It's also, by the time we're up in the mountains in August, everything is much more open. You're traveling from pasture to pasture. Instead of, you're not totally confined on a trail pushing cattle. You've got more pasture and room to move. And so I know some guests have said that they prefer the August trips because of that. It's much more open. But some people like the challenge of getting the cattle up the canyon. And so I'd say the same thing for the September trip. The September trip isn't, I mean, you're not waking up as early because then it's cooler. But
then it doesn't get daylight until like 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Then.
So, but the September trip's still the same in that you're taking the cattle from the mountains to the valley and the homestead. And so, from there, it's really more what you're looking for. If you don't want to wake up super early, then maybe the August trips.
In terms of like degrees and stuff, I've heard that I've read that actually in September I'm gonna expect some snow, and in August probably less, right?
Yeah.
I say it's quite possible. I say we normally get at least 1 snowstorm during the September trip. Sometimes more. Occasionally you'll have a year that you don't. But
this year was gorgeous. It was really warm and no snow, no rain.
I say that year that Tao was there, it was at the beginning of the week. The weather was really nice. I mean, you could wear just a t-shirt, and I mean, you were very comfortable. And then that last day, it got pretty cold and snow and Catherine's brother. What's that?
The way you like it. We like it wet and.
The funny part was Catherine's brother was actually on that trip. We decided to, since he's now family, we better torture him too.
Well, he wanted to come out and see what we do, right? He wanted to learn about our way of life. And so my brothers are quite a bit older than me. They're about 20 years older than me. So here's this grown man calling his kid sister saying, hey, what should I pack? What should I wear? And I said, you know, it's September. Plan on packing clothes like you're going to go skiing. And if it's nicer, you know, you wear layers so you can strip down to a t-shirt if it's nice outside. And he goes, okay. Every single day, I like to tell people when they come to camp, I like to say, you never leave camp without your slicker, which is your raincoat, or your jacket. And you tie both of them to your saddle. And I tell this to my brother, you never leave camp without your jacket or your slicker. And he looks up at the sky and he goes, it's a beautiful day. I don't need this. And you would think he did this like 3 times, and each time he left his jacket and his slicker at camp. Yep. Of course it rains and snows. And I couldn't feel that bad for him because he had asked me.
You told him.
Yep. So he got pretty cold because on the last day, we were moving on that September trip. We went from our camp at 9,000 feet to our camp in the Dry Fork, which is about 6,000 feet. And he goes, oh, it's lower in elevation. It will be warmer. I'm going to put my jacket in the luggage that's not going to that cow camp. And so just like him saying, what should I pack, Catherine? So he puts his warm jacket in the stuff that doesn't go to that cow camp. And that last day it rained, it snowed, people got soaking wet and were freezing cold. But I mean, what did he say at the end of that? He goes, I have a lot more respect for my little sister after doing that. So, yep.
It's a great experience.
But if you dress right.
It's a great
If you dress right. What's that?
Maya, you're gonna enjoy it anytime you're gonna go.
I feel so. I see so. Regarding all the other like food and stuff, I can read over the. I don't want to waste your time here. I can read everything over the website.
2 months diet, 2 months diet before and 2 months diet after. That's what is really recommended. 2 months before and this is how you balance the amount.
Okay, just checking.
The amount of delicious food you're gonna eat there. 2 months before, 2 months after.
When you're in the mountains, you don't need to count your calories because you're working really hard. It's fine.
No. I'm not counting any calories. I'm a very hungry person. I eat all the time. So exactly my point. I want to check if I need to bring stuff from home. That's it. Okay.
No.
Perfect. Thank you very much. It looks amazing. I couldn't imagine these things actually exist. Tal, thank you very much. Tal, thank you very much for actually inviting me and the introduction via the email. Guys, I will definitely be in touch.
Well, thank you. It was nice to meet you, Maya.
It was definitely
same here.
Catherine, Taylor, it was a pleasure seeing you guys after so long. I didn't see them, by the way, since we are in touch a little bit, but I didn't see them and didn't speak with them since we've been there. So it was a pleasure by itself. A little bit disappointing that Jack wasn't here, but is there? Come on, are you serious? No?
Nope, not yet.
Not yet. Oh.
You owe me a Jack. You owe me a Jack.
Sounds good.
You owe me a Jack.
You'll just have to come out and see him in person.
Yeah.
Sorry?
You'll be riding by then.
Yeah, but
you'll just have to come out and see him in person, yeah.
By the time, you're gonna be you hope, you cross your finger that it's gonna catch up. No, try to imagine that it decided to not gonna have an option.
I say my mother has Jack, but she also left her cell phone here, so we can't even get in touch with her to tell her. So
no.
But at least you know she's gonna come back because she left her phone. So don't worry.
I don't know. She might give up her phone and keep Jack. We'll see. At least for a little while.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Yeah, absolutely. Guys, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very, 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 very much for your time. And
Taylor, it was great seeing you again.
Good to see you, Shani.
We're still waiting for you to come to Israel and visit us.
Oh, that's the plan.
Well, I think you guys
someday.
I think you guys have to allow people into your country for me to do that.
Yeah.
That's scheduled for 10.
We're looking for it.
Exactly.
Thank you. We don't make great food like you guys, but we will happy to have you here.
Well, we can't wait to see you all again. It was so good to see you all. So thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
It was great.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.